Hi and welcome to our third part of our restoration vlog. In the previous episode I talked you through all the components of our M151A1 that need fixing, restoring or replacing. And by the way, if you haven't seen our first two videos yet, I recommend you check them out on our social media channels. In this episode we are looking at the progress we made since we took inventory. First of all, we ordered a bunch of new parts in order to get started. But when I say new, I mean mostly so-called new old stock, or NOS in short. Those are actually original spares from old armed forces stocks. Because after the M151 models were phased out, luckily for us, these spares found their way onto the civilian market. So since we're aiming to put the car back into a state very similar to the original, we are trying to use as many new old stock parts as possible. One of the parts delivered was a replacement for the master brake cylinder. With this new one, we can utilize the full braking power of our Ford again. A big part of bringing back our M151A1's glory is done simply by sanding, polishing and cleaning. The chrome accessories are just one example for it. But when the result of polishing looks like this, I think it's definitely worth the effort. The chrome frames for the lights and the reflector are looking as good as new. As you might remember, in the last video I highlighted the petrol tank as one of the major challenges of this build. Well, there's some slightly positive news on that front. After filling it with a special bacteria emulsion to attack the sludge in the tank, it looks like we might be able to turn the tide and not need to replace the old tank with a new one after all. At the moment, the tank is filled with citric acid in order to deal with the residue that the bacteria was not able to decompose. So far, it looks as one could be cautiously optimistic. Next in line was the MUTT's underbelly. After another good wash and some peeling with a grinder to get rid of all sediments, we started fighting the rust. Several spots got some new base coat in order to prevent any rust patches from expanding. One example is the underside of the battery compartment, which, as you might remember from the last episode, did suffer from leaking battery acid. Fighting corrosion also demands almost surgical precision. With a syringe, rust preventative needed to be applied to all seams, to all cracks, gaps along the chassis. After letting the rust preventative do its thing, we also applied the zinc and phosphate base coat in the gaps. All in all, that was a very, very time-consuming effort. After letting everything dry out, it was time to apply some new paint. As I said towards the end of the last episode, we will bring you a little extra video about the paint on this particular M151A1. Here you can see the good old olive drab being applied, just like the vehicle would have left the factory over 40 years ago. Just a little reminder of what it looked like before and how it's looking now after all the coating and painting. It's quite a change, don't you agree? And all the rust patches are gone now, so they've been replaced with a new fresh paint job. Some parts were also additionally conserved with wax. We are hoping that this will prevent corrosion for the next years to come, even though we will use it on the road again and not keep it in storage all the time like we did for the last 28 years. We also worked on the rear running gear, meaning the suspension, the swing axle construction, the back brakes, and so on. So some of the bearings were damaged, for example. It looks like the damage occurred when they were taken apart in the past and put back the wrong way. This meant for us to replace the old bearings with new ones. All parts of the rear axle and back suspension were cleaned, freed from corrosion, and got a new zinc and phosphate base coating. Here's what the parts of the rear axle looked like before. And just as a comparison again, here's what the parts look like now. So the base coat will hopefully prevent corrosion and rust for the coming years. The screws were also cleaned and put back where they belong, a true feast for the eyes. And by the way, in case you're wondering, everything's been done by the book. So we are following the instructions from the official United States Army technical manuals. These manuals provided the maintenance crews as well as the soldiers driving the vehicle and using it in the field with technical know-how. But back to the supporting arms. They too received some paint over the base coating, but not everywhere, in order to really recreate the paint pattern it came out of the factory with. And they were mounted back underneath the back of the MUTT. Up next was the replacing of the rear brake cylinders and the renewal of the brake hoses at the back. The 4 cylinders on the M151A1 are interchangeable with one another. As you can see, the cylinders for the front and the rear axle are exactly the same. So before putting the new ones in, they were disassembled and checked, as they are new old stock as well. And you can never be cautious enough when it comes to the braking system of a car. So here you can also see the comparison between the old cylinders and the new ones that are going to replace them. The back brakes were put back on with the new cylinders in place. We also attached the new hoses. And here's the result, a completely restored back suspension of the car. As you can see, our MUTT is coming back together piece by piece. But for now, I'm going to leave it at that. In the next episode, we are going to take a look at the differentials and at the front axle. So, see you then.